Hello YouTubers and fellow hams. Playing around with something today and having one heck of a time filming it. This flickering effect you're seeing is not a special effect. This is not an edited, well, it's an edited video, but this is not any kind of a special video effect. You can see, put my hand in there, there's a flicker on my hand. What I want you to look at really close is the end of that feather. Do you see what's going on there? Let me zoom in a little. I've had to put the camera in super night shot mode in order to reduce the raster bars. You see that? Oh, now it doesn't want to focus on it. There we go. See how that feather is waving in slow motion? And if I come in here and make an adjustment, I can speed it up. I can slow it right down. What's going on here? Well, what you're seeing is persistence of vision and a stroboscopic effect. They call these slow motion frames or real-time slow motion. And we're using an Arduino over here. And I'm varying the difference in rate between the feather being shook and the light source pulsing. So I speed that up. Slow it right down. Let me turn off one of my lights and we'll see if we can get you a better view of it. I really wish I could avoid these raster bars. What's happening is the camera's photographic frame rate is beating with the vibration effect on the light strobe. I'm going to step across the field of view here. Okay, I'm going to turn off one of my lights. Yeah, the stroboscopic effect is amplified. Believe me, to the naked eye, you don't see that flicker at all. That is merely a product of the video camera, and I have tried all kinds of ways to film this, and I cannot get away from that. But that feather is waving in slow motion like that to my naked eye. When I look at it, that's what I see. Put my fingers in here so you can see that I can touch it. So it's really there. And it's really waving in slow motion. So how does this work? Well, sorry, I had to step across there again. There's the whole rig. We've got a frame sitting on a base. I've got my proto board back here with the Arduino. Some controls around the Arduino, two MOSFETs, two power MOSFETs over here. One of them is driving a bank of LEDs, white LEDs, back here. The other one is driving a solenoid up here that is shaking this alligator clip. Give you a close-up. There we go. So up here we've got a solenoid attached to this alligator clip, and this alligator clip's hooked to the feather, and that solenoid, I don't know if you can hear that or not, maybe not on the microphone audio, is vibrating. And it's vibrating that feather. And then behind that bit of tape is a string of white LEDs. Now the vibrator is running at about 80 cycles per second. The LEDs are running just a little bit off of that. 80.1 or 80.2 or something like that, just a little bit off, and I can adjust that variance here, make it further off, and it looks like it's waving faster. What's happening is the LEDs are strobing the feather, And the feathers is vibrating really fast, but the LEDs are catching it during the oscillation like that, strobing it. And persistence of vision in your eye brings that together and makes it look like it's moving in slow motion because you're only seeing those snapshots, those quick little frames of the motion. And the result is quite striking. If I adjust this down to where they are almost at the same frequency. If you remember from my 0-beat video, you can remember what those waveforms look like when they're really close to each other. And that is the same thing. It is beating, the two frequencies are beating together. And instead of hearing a sound go up and down, we're seeing it visually. Making waves. Isn't that something? You can clip all kinds of things into that alligator clip there and make them shake. This feather seemed to be the most dramatic, so it's what I'm using. I will put a link to the original project in the description down below. It's on GitHub. The original builder did a much fancier frame, a full picture frame with a lot more LEDs around it to provide a greater light source and a much better effect. I just threw this together for a demonstration, and I thought you might enjoy it. So, there you go. Real-time slow motion. So here's a closer look at the circuit on the breadboard. I have a 15 ohm resistor in series with the LEDs. I'm using a 12 volt supply, so that limits current a little bit, and I don't worry about killing the LEDs. These power MOSFETs came out of an old UPS that I had gutted for parts. This diode is reverse on the driver coil, the vibrator coil, so that transient spikes coming back on the coil don't go into the MOSFET, so it just bleeds off those back spikes. Then it's just an Arduino Nano. These two pots are taking 5 volts to ground and providing a variable voltage to 2 of the analog pins for adjusting the brightness of the LEDs and the relative frequency between the vibrator and the flashing LEDs. So a very simple circuit. This is just a 5 volt regulator over here providing 5 volts to the Nano from my 12 volt rail. So it's a very simple circuit, minimal parts count. The hardest part of the assembly by far was the vibrator. I have a solenoid that came out of a old tape recorder, and the shaft of the solenoid is sandwiched between two pieces of paper that are bent at right angles up here and screwed into the wood, so that creates my hinge that can move easily and return to zero. So the solenoid can pull it in and release it, and that creates the vibration on this alligator clip, which is just clamped in with these screws and this little tiny piece of metal to hold it in place. I could probably come up with a better way to do that with a little less resistance here and get just a little bit stronger vibration, but I found the effect was adequate. So coming up with that assembly took the longest time, figuring out how to do this hinge, how to get that motion that solenoid plunger could pull in easy enough. The LEDs came out of a flashlight. Here's the LED strip. I had a flashlight that had a side grip flashing warning light, and I just took that out, and it had several white LEDs on it, so that's what I used. If you wanted to build one of these in a nice frame, you'd put white LED strips all the way around the frame so you'd have a good solid light source on your object. And probably a hinge with a little bit looser, a little less physical drag, so you get better vibration on your object. So that's pretty much the whole build. Now you can see how those LEDs strobe the camera really bad, but you can still see the motion. It's a pretty neat little curiosity. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like the video with a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe. Also, join the Facebook page. We can discuss the content of the videos, ask questions, find answers, and hopefully develop a lively community. Thanks again.